Hello, Rick. Good to see you, my friend. Hello, Diane. Metta. Welcome, friends. As usual, we'll give it a few minutes for people to come in before we get started. Hello, Karuna. Monastic cat cuddler. Karuna, after I left Empty Cloud the last time, I stayed 5 weeks at Ayatsu Dhamma's place and I took care of 4 cats. They basically had the run of the house, and I had my one kind of room that was free of anything cat, which was good for my allergies. It worked out okay. Hello, Ricky, Yankee, Cameron. We'll get started in a few minutes. Actually, I didn't really cuddle with the cats much. The one cat was like scaredy cat, like fraidy cat. So like the one cat wouldn't even come near me. The other cat protested me being there and wouldn't come in the house for days and days and days. Um, and then the one female cat was kind of nice. She wanted some cuddling, but mostly, which actually works fine for me because I'm not much of a cat cuddler with my allergies and everything anyway. Um, Hello, Jayanta. Welcome, Jayanta. Hello, Dharma learner. Welcome. I hope you are feeling better and getting enough rest. I think I'm getting enough rest. I'm still dealing with energy issues. I don't know what it is. I go for my walk, my mile-and-a-half walk after I eat now these days, and I still feel tired after the walk. When I used to feel energetic after the walk. Maybe it's just because it's really, really hot outside. I don't know. But and dealing with energy issues is just something that is just a normal thing these days. Hello, Gregory, Douse, welcome. All right. I think we're good enough to get started. Let's bring up the beginning chant. There we go. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Savatyang tatra ko baran chavo bhikkhave desasami baraharancha baradanancha baranikke panancha tang sunata katumo cha bhikkhave baro Panchupadana kanda tissa vachaniyang katame pancha rupupadana kando vedanupadana kando sanyupadana kando sankarupadana kando vinyanupadana kando ayang vucchati bhikkave bharo Katamocha bhikkave bharaharo puggalo tissa vachaniyang yavyayang ayasma evang namo evang goto ayang vucchati bhikkave bharaharo katamancha bhikkave bharadanang yayang tanha ponubhavika nandira gasahagata Tatra tatra binandini sayatiddang kamatanha bhavatanha vibhavatanha idang vucchati bhikkave bharahadanam kattamancha bhikkave bhara nikkepanang yo tassa yeva tanhaya sesa viraga nirodho chaggo patinissaggo muttiyanaliyo idang vucchati bhikkave bhara nikkepanang ti Idang avocha bhagava idang vatvana sugato artha parang etadavocha satta Barahave panchakanda baraharo chapuggalo baradanang dukang loke baranikke panang sukang nikkipitva garung barung anyang barang anadiya samulang tanhama buye nichato parinibbuto All right, English. The burden. At Savati, there the Blessed One said this. Bhikkhus, I will teach you the burden, the carrier of the burden, the taking up of the burden, and the laying down of the burden. Listen to that. And what, bhikkhus, is the burden? It should be said, the 5 aggregates subject to clinging. What 5? The form aggregate subject to clinging. The feeling aggregate subject to clinging. The perception aggregate subject to clinging, the volitional formations aggregate subject to clinging, the consciousness aggregate subject to clinging. This is called the burden. And what, bhikkhus, is the carrier of the burden? It should be said, the person, this venerable one of such a name and clan. This is called the carrier of the burden. And what, bhikkhus, is the taking up of the burden? It is this craving that leads to renewed existence, accompanied by delight and lust, seeking delight here and there. That is, craving for sensual pleasures, craving for existence, craving for extermination. This is called the taking up of the burden. And what, bhikkhus, is the laying down of the burden? It is the remainderless fading away and cessation of that same craving, the giving up and relinquishing of it, freedom from it, non-reliance on it. This is called the laying down of the burden. This is what the Blessed One said. Having said this, the Fortunate One, the teacher, further said this. The 5 aggregates are truly burdens. The burden carrier is the person. Taking up the burden is suffering in the world. Laying down the burden is blissful. Having laid the heavy burden down without taking up another burden, having drawn out craving with its root, one is freed from hunger, fully quenched. All right, friends, it is Monday night, so that means it is time for another 2-hour festival of Dhamma with the Maggasekha community, Dhammapalooza. Dhammapalooza each week is different because it is community guided. We just did some chanting. Later, we'll do some meditation. What else we do today? Well, that's up to you. This is not just to come and listen to Bhante J talk for 2 hours. That's my Saturday session on Insight Timer. That's what that is. But for Dhammapalooza, I like it to be community. I like for people to be talking to each other in the chat, talking to me, and these kind of things. It's a communal event. So if you have a question you'd like me to answer, if you have a topic that you'd like me to give a Dhamma talk on, type those in the chat. If you have a topic you'd like the community to discuss, everybody in the chat in the community who'd like to, you'd like to kind of get their perspective on things, we can do that as well. So it's up to you all. And we'll give it a few minutes, see what comes up in the chat. And if nothing comes up in the chat, well, I always have a sutta in my back pocket for us to read. Right? It's always good to go directly to the word of the Buddha. That's why there's always a sutta in the back pocket to read. So, friends, hello, Anna. Let's see. Dharma learner, are you permitted to have supplements, or do they need to be offered each day? No, most supplements like either protein powder or electrolyte powder, things like that, those are like lifetime medicine kind of things. They wouldn't need to be offered every day. How does the seventh precept? Is the seventh precept Nachagita Vadita? I so rarely, like as a monk, chant the eight precepts that I don't have the last couple memorized as to which one is first. Let me look. I got it. Nachagita Vadita. Yeah, the training rule to abstain from dancing, singing, music shows, wearing garlands, using perfumes, and beautifying with cosmetics. Yeah. Not too bad for not doing that for a long time. So how does this work with monastics? Well, most of that's pretty easy, right? Why don't we? I mean, this is part of the question. Might as well share. How about that? So we can see it. All right. So I undertake the training rule to abstain from dancing, singing. These are obvious, right? This is why you don't see monks, you don't see monastics dancing and singing. At least the overwhelming majority of monks are not dancing and singing. Sometimes in some places, in some traditions, maybe you might see these things. But in Theravada, this is definitely not something you can. Actually, most likely, you're not going to see a monk anywhere near dancing and singing. Although there are exceptions to this. I remember going to, I don't think it was it. Was it a Katina? I don't remember exactly what I went to, but I went to a Sri Lankan temple as a monk in Washington D.C. And all the monks were like sitting there with the people, and then like all of these like girls got up and they're like dancing, and I'm like, why are we watching a bunch of young girls dance? I don't know what's going on here, but this is definitely not my culture. Obviously, it was a Sri Lankan cultural dance. But it wasn't just for us, but it was for the whole community to watch. But normally, monastics are not going to be around. This is why monastics, they, in the tradition, the ancient tradition in the suttas, they go into the village before noon. Right? Usually when they go into the village, the men are probably working in the fields. The women are there. They give the food to the monastics, and then they go. Then the monastics go back out into the wilderness, like about a mile away from the village, and stay there for the day's abiding. Right, so they're not like anywhere near. Actually, the Buddha tells us that you're supposed to be far enough from a village that it's not a long walk to get food, or close enough from the village that it's not a long walk to get food, and far enough from the village that you won't hear the singing and the dancing and such, all these kind of things. So yeah, for monks, these are not things to be around. Same thing, music, shows, wearing garlands, obviously using perfumes, beautifying with cosmetics. These are all also obvious things that your monastics. Now, Anna did have the clarification to talk about entertainments. So this is the thing about, I guess we could fit this all under shows. So there, at the time of the Buddha, there was no TV, there was no like, Netflix or Curiosity Stream or whatever. So like to go, if a monk wanted to like have some kind of entertainment, they'd have to go and see it be with people. Right. So it was a much, and so it's like, wait, I thought monks are supposed to be in the woods meditating. How come they're here at this entertainment thing? Right. And so this was something that hurt the faith of the Buddhist people. Now, these days, it's actually quite common. You can go to like a monastery, a Buddhist monastery in the city, and you'll see that monasteries have TVs. Even I remember I went to one monastery in the city and they had like soap operas on during the day. And somebody told me that they learned English by watching the American TV, which, hey, I mean, it's not a bad way of doing things. I kind of, because I'm learning Spanish, sometimes I'll bring up a video of just conversational people talking, like a YouTube video, so I can hear the Spanish. So it is what it is. So it's really about the intention. Like, for instance, if it's a documentary or history or something like that, if it's educational, it usually wouldn't fit within the rule. That's not really entertaining, because many monks get like their PhDs and they have to watch videos and stuff like that, documentaries, etc. It's all part of their education. So whatever you're doing, it's the intention of, are you doing it for education, for understanding, or for entertainment? And even if something is allowable, it can still be used unskillfully. Right? So if you're watching, I watch 10 hours of history a day. Okay, that's fine. You're a monk. You didn't technically break a rule, but why are you watching 10 hours of history a day? Shouldn't you be doing monk things? Right? Shouldn't you be doing other things? So this is the case when it comes to monastics. And just like many things, most monks these days use money. So all these kind of more minor rules, and indeed the rule for entertainment is very, very minor. It's in the most minor of rule breaches. So all of these kind of minor rules, in many ways, the money rule is not minor, at least not as minor. The money rule this is fairly serious offense, but most monks use money today. So there's a difference between like kind of like the ideal and the Vinaya and the reality. Right? I remember watching an article or reading an article maybe like 6-7 years ago about some Tibetan Karmapa who's a young guy. Karmapa, he's like, hey, you're like, 5 years old. You're the reincarnation. Do you want to become a monk? And they're like, I guess. And so this like, I mean, I think he's probably in his late 20s now. But during the article, he must have been like early 20s and they talk about him like he plays Grand Theft Auto to release his anger. So you kind of think, yeah, I don't think monks are playing video games, even if it is a minor rule. That's probably not the best thing for a monk to do, but it is what it is. Hello, Gretchen. Anna, isn't it 30 minutes before noon? No. So the cutoff is solar noon, and solar noon changes. It could be 11:40. It could be 12:20. Right? Because the cycle of nature of the sun and the moon and stuff like that. Solar moon is never like the same. It's always changing. And so by convention, most monastics have kind of like set like 12 noon as the cutoff. And of course, if you're in a place that has daylight savings, then it's one. Which is really good if you're traveling a lot and and you need that extra bit of time to have some food. So no, there's no time limit of when they needed to leave town. It's just the general. It's the general idea that you don't go into town at the wrong time. And the wrong time is usually, like when the sun's going down, past the meal, these kind of things. Unless there's a real specific reason, you're not supposed to really go into town, um, after that time. The issues I'm having is music and TV. I watch comedy during downtimes. Well, you're not a monastic, so it's. Unless you're trying to follow the eight precepts as a layperson, I know a few people who have done this. Um, if you want to go for it, it's okay. I mean, I don't necessarily ever recommend it to anybody. I tried it as a layperson. I don't think I didn't, even as somebody who was intent on becoming monastic. But it didn't fit with my lay life. But some very few people do follow the eight regularly, daily, and most lay people who follow the eight do it on the opposite of days. All right. Let's see. Going back to other questions, Rick has a question here. Let me stop sharing here. There we go. Bante, what is a skillful way to relate to a friend's chronic mental illness, e.g., a personality disorder in terms of impermanence? It helps to finally surrender to them having a serious, long lasting condition, but I don't want to create it as a solid, unchanging thing. Well, you know, if you're born with a deformity, chances are that deformity is going to be with you for the rest of that life, right? So, in terms of this life, the deformity is pretty permanent, right? It might change as you get older in some ways or another, but for most of that, your life in this body, you have that deformity. That's just the way it is. Um, so, in that regard, especially if you have a in your 20s or whatever, you have a triggering of bipolar or schizophrenia or whatever. That stuff's just not going to magically go away. But if you live to 80, 40 years, it's not going to go away. You might be able to figure out ways to manage it and have it live with it more skillfully, and that there can be a change, right? So in that regard, when you're dealing with somebody who has mental health issues, the way I look at it is this: a regular, healthy, mentally healthy person, according to the Dhamma, is deluded beyond belief already. Right? Just the baseline for the regular person is delusion. We're all deluded, and that's with a healthy mind, right? That's when everything is quote unquote working normal. We're beyond deluded. Some people have extra, extra things added on to that. It's like because of past karma, because of maybe environmental conditions. We don't know, a variety of different reasons. They have these additional barriers to understanding reality. And so it's just like an extra layer of delusion that's added on. And so that doesn't give a justification for them to do harmful things, but it's an understanding in your own mind as to why they're acting in such a way. So, I understand this person has this mental health issue. And I think you say, but I don't want to create it as a solid, unchanging thing. I think maybe you don't want to like make it like a stigmatizing thing. Is that maybe what you're meaning there? Like, this set in stone thing that won't change and kind of like a stigmatizing thing. Um, but when it comes to delusion, oftentimes we need other people to help us kind of set straight. This is not even, you don't have any mental health issues, right? You still might need, good people, good Kalyanamita that will call you out on your crap. That will say, hey, no, this is wrong. This is not good. This is how I see it. And of course, it's up to you then to not be defensive about that. Like the person is attacking you. Because you understand, usually, if this is a person who has your best interest in heart. Okay? Now, when somebody has mental illness, that can be harder to do, but still within the framework and and their understanding and their perception, it still might be a good thing to do, especially if they're doing something very unskillful or harmful even to you or to others. So I guess this is the best way I can kind of put it of how to relate to somebody with some kind of mental illness. We already are deluded, and people who have mental health issues have extra layers of delusion added on to that. And that can make something like doing the practice harder. Although there are some successful monastics, bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, who have a variety of different levels of, you know, mental illness, and they've been meditating for many years, and so it can be done, but it's quite hard. It's hard even if you have no issues, right? We know this. It's quite hard. So yeah, I guess that's what I would say about that. Gregory has a question, although okay. So just checking the chat to see if there was any follow-ups by Rick. Hello, Gretchen. As a wandering monk, nomad monk, how important do you find it to be for your practice having a spiritual friend you can talk to about your experience? Even it's beyond important to have good Kalyanamitas as a monastic. Whether you're living in a monastery or not. If you're living in a monastery, you have no Kalyanamitas, you might as well just be alone. It might as well be like you have no help whatsoever. Um, so so whether you're a wandering monk, a nomadic monk like myself, and I think I've mentioned this before. I don't like to use the word wandering because in America, in the West, with the English word wandering, people have the perception of like a Tudong monk or a Charaka monk, like a monk who is literally just like living out in the wilderness, like Ajahn, well, not Ajahn yet, Tanjaguro, who completed his 3 month tudong from Southern California to Northern California, right? Like that is a wandering monk, right? For those 2 months where he lived out, and so like that's what people think of as wandering. Nomadic is I go from one house to another. Like the last 5 months, I was in let's see, New Jersey, California, Colorado, North Carolina, back to New Jersey. Before that, I was in Maryland. So what? I've been in like 5 or 6 states this year, something like that. So I'm more of a nomad monk in that regard. But anyway, um, hello, Hubertus, one of my friends from Indonesia. I love my Indonesian Buddhist friends. I haven't been back to my Indonesian friends in New York City for quite a while. But Dharma learner, no, I will not be at Empty Cloud this Sunday. I don't know what's going on this Sunday. Um, even though I'm in the same state, I'm not exactly close to Empty Cloud. So let's see. Okay, go back to Gregory's question. Okay, the Kalyanamitta. Yes, you need Kalyanamitta, like the Buddha says. Right, one who has good Kalyanamitta is expected to follow the Noble Eightfold Path. As a monastic, you need, like, I'll give you for an example, right? Like, I'm blessed in many ways, even though I kind of am very like alone in many ways. I've also been able to make some connections. For instance, like, I'm able to message Ajahn Brahmali if I have a question on Vinaya, like I just did recently. I was like, oh, this is an interesting. I've not noticed this before. And I emailed, and I do it very sparingly because he's a senior monastic who has his own, a billion other people bothering him. So I don't want to, but like that connection is something I cherish, right? Because that's a senior monastic who translated the Vinaya, who's very knowledgeable in it, who I can ask a question to, right? That's and then I have other, younger monastics who I can kind of talk about monastic life to, a few, not that many, but even in lay life, I've never had a lot of friends. I remember when I was young, my grandfather's, one of my grandfather's famous quotes to my dad, and then for me was, if you have one good friend in your life, you're lucky. Right, and that's been pretty bared out. Like, I usually have one good friend, and that friend is not always the same over the decades. But yeah, it's not about the number per se. It's about do you have good kalyanamitta, good virtuous friends who encourage you doing good things. And so yes, for monastic, for lay people, yes, of course you need that. But for a monastic especially, you need that. You can't. It's better for monastics to be in a good, supportive Kalyanamitta group. But if you can't be, if you're by yourself, then at the very least, forge connections with good monastics who you can have that discussion with. Hello, Anthony. Hello, my friend. Hope you're doing well. What? Let me see here. Oh, and it's saying intent on becoming a monastic. All right. Yeah. It's not a bad thing to go on retreats. When you go on retreats, you're living like monastics, right? Go spend 3 or 4 days at a monastery. That's what I did. I did in the 3 years I was visiting Bhavana before I became a monastic. I think I went there 15 times, 14, 15 times in 3 years. So I went pretty often. Every couple months I was there, only twice a year for a retreat, but I would go for like a 4-day weekend just to be with the monks, just to live escape my regular life and go with the monks for a bit. So yeah, it's good to kind of start to get that practice in. Ah, Karuna, I didn't know that you were also inclining towards monastic life. Very good. Potential future monastic life. Well, doing audits of what I can and can't renounce yet. So the more you do the practice dedicatedly, disciplined, sincerely, honestly, the more you develop that nibbida, the more you develop that wisdom, the easier it becomes to let go of things, even as a layperson. And then you have to, you get to the point where maybe, you get to the point where you have to take that leap of faith. That's how I view becoming a monastic as a as a like Buddhist convert, like, you just don't know, but you're taking that last leap. I don't know how I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm going to last as a monastic forever. I don't know. I mean, this is my 7th year. I don't know if I'll be a monk forever. I mean, my intuition tells me I will be, and I don't, I can't, at this point, I can't imagine doing anything else. But 10 years down the road, who knows? I don't know. Um, but you have that kind of inclination to take that leap and to know it's not going to be easy. But if I have a supportive community, a supportive setting, then that makes it a lot easier to be able to kind of let go of those last things, like the entertainments and things like that. Because indeed, to really start to get that deep meditation, you have to be able to let go of any kind of, like the entertainments and the distracting the mind, wanting to get involved in all kinds of different things. And that's not easy. It's like you have to let go of the lesser joy for the greater joy. But unless you've experienced the greater joy, again, you're taking a leap of faith. You're like, I mean, I've never experienced jhanas, so for me, it's like it's a bit of suffering. It's not easy, but still, I can be like, I offering this suffering up to a future Janasara who's going to be a, you know, powerful good monk. These kind of things. Um, but no, yeah, you at some point, it's, you know, if I don't do this, I'm going to regret it. Even if I do have misgivings as to what can I really fully let go of it all. Hello, Josh. Bante this weekend, my 17-year-old cat lived to 17. Wow. That's an old cat, isn't it? Um, is in the final stages of kidney failure. And I had to make the decision to put her to sleep. I know I'll have to accept the karma of that decision. Yeah, it's true. But how can I emotionally cope? Has not the teacher said that which arises must cease? That probably doesn't help with your emotions, does it? So, well, how can you emotionally cope? Obviously, you've had a cat for 17 years. Either you or maybe another family member, somebody's close to the cat. So it's a connection that now is broken. And because you had an attachment and a connection to a being that has gone, because you have had that separation, you will suffer. You will have grief. You will have feelings, unpleasant feelings related to that separation. And that's normal. That's natural. That's okay. That is how it works. This is why the Buddha says if you have, uh, you know, 5 dear ones, you have 5 sufferings. If you have 1 dear one, you have 1 suffering. If you have no dear ones, you have no suffering. This is simply an acknowledgement that because you attach to person, place, experience, thing that is impermanent, and we have the deluded view that this thing will be there forever, or at least years and years down the road, so we don't have to think about it until that years and years comes. So, but because we have this attachment, we will suffer. This is normal. So just let it happen. It's okay. Just have, why didn't I'm sorry, I didn't show you. If you're emotional, you're emotional. Go through the grieving process. Let yourself go through the grieving process. Maybe do some rituals, like a burial, a little ceremony, maybe even a little funeral. I don't know. Some people have like little pet funerals and things like that. Whatever you feel like is appropriate. That's okay. You're going through the stages of grief. Hello, Visaka. Elaine. Josh, if you have anything else you'd like me to talk about or clarify regarding this, or if I didn't cover what you would have liked me to cover, then please put a follow-up question and I'll talk about it a bit more. Karuna is talking about she just had COVID and all kinds of issues. And while she was lying there in pain, she really wanted murder mystery audiobooks. Well, yeah, when I was sick, from a young age, when I would be homesick, what I'd be doing? I'd be playing video games or watching like, history documentaries on the History Channel or movies or something like that. So that these are essentially little bits of pleasurable experience to help you cope with an unpleasant experience. This is in the Salla Sutta, the simile of the arrow. This is how the Buddha tells us. This is our underlying habitual tendency. When we are in pain, suffering, etc., the only escape we know from that pain, suffering, is to drown it out with pleasant experience. That's why we have a painful experience, we drink, we eat, we try to have all kinds of sexual activity. Right? Whatever it is, whatever is our drug of choice in terms of drowning out unpleasant experience. That's what we do. So for you, when you're sick, you like those murder mysteries. It's okay. When you're a monastic, you can listen to Dhamma. You can have a little earbud, and you can listen to your favorite Dhamma talks when you're sick if you want. If you're not able to just be mindfully with it, just to watch the process. Okay. Anna's saying, I'm not the only one that's looking for monastic life. No, I think most people who get most people who start seeing benefit from the path, even if they're like married with kids, they contemplate a monastic life. I think that most people contemplate it, at least, to a certain degree. And some people get a little closer and then decide it's not for them. and some people go all the way. It depends on your karma, your conditioning, your level of practice, your level of nibbida, all kinds of variety of different. Hubertus has a question kind of similar. I want to ask about attachment to family, especially, and this is pretty close to what we were talking before with our cat that's passed, our cat friend from Josh. Um, I want to ask you about attachment to family, especially our kids. If they are sick, my Dhamma meditation practice for years has gone forgotten. Like I never know why it is and how been upek. Yeah, so Hubert, this is as I was saying, you have children. So there's an obvious attachment there. You want your children to be happy, healthy, to grow, into adults, have their own children and live happy, good lives, these kind of things. These are normal, good wishes for a parent. And when they get sick, which is normal life, children get sick. You can count your blessings if it's only a cold or the flu or even COVID or something. Kids are basically immune to COVID in a way. Like they can handle it very well. If you're like me, who's been around, cancer a lot, I've been on children's cancer wards with I see 10, 15, 20 kids with bald heads, like little 5-year-olds and things like that. It can get worse. It can be much worse. Um, but this is normal. We have these attachments, right? Bhante Silananda, who's one of my favorite monks, he's a Sri Lankan monk, and he tells the story of when he was in his, I think, late 20s, early 30s, his father died, and he had to give like the Dhamma talk, slash eulogy at the funeral, and he said that the Dhamma left him. He had so much grief and sadness over the loss of his father that the Dhamma left. Well, of course, it makes sense. One of my favorite Dhamma talk of all time, Ajahn Chah's "In the Dead of Night," where he talks about being in the charnel ground and thinking that there was a ghost coming at him, and he was so afraid. And he said, "I lost Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha." Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha went away. I don't know where they went. Right? When we're in very strong emotional states, even if we have a good amount of training, we can forget about that training. So yeah, if you have a sick child and stuff, yeah, the Dhamma all of a sudden becomes secondary. That's okay. That's the normal mind state. That's the normal the way of the mind. You have to train the mind though. You reflect. I have myself and my wife have brought these children in the world. And it's our duty as parents to take care of the children. Even the Buddha says, gives us duties to parents to children, and children to parents. It's our duty to take care of them, make sure they're okay, and teach them well. But beyond that, we have little control over them. We don't have any control about really when they grow up, they're going to want their own lives, do their own thing, what they want to do, even though we might say we want them to be doctors or a lawyer or whatever, and then they want to, I don't know, go in the city and paint or something. We have very little control over that because they're their own person. They're their own being in samsara. Parents' job is to raise them to the best of the parents' ability, give them good morals, good ethics, good sila, good training, And then once they're an adult, in many ways, it's up to them. It's not up to you. But when they're children and when they're sick, it's okay. You can have compassion and good and metta for yourself that you've lost the Dhamma. Try to remember, right? The 5 subjects of contemplation. I'm subject to old age, sickness, death. But not only am I subject to, all beings are subject to old age, sickness, and death. So yes, even your children are subject to old age, sickness, and death. Of course, we want them to, grow old and die after we're, the parents are long dead, right? Parents are like, okay, when we're long dead, then you can be old and die. It's okay. Right? We don't want the children to be sick, but this is the nature that children will be sick. This is your children are not exempt. Neither are you. This is the nature. That's what Bhante Silananda would say. This is the nature. Like, this is reality. It's up to us to understand and to reflect and to see reality for what it is and act accordingly. I see Anthony has a question, but I want to check the chat for any follow-ups, and then I'll come back to Anthony's question. Um, Josh is saying, I did a little ritual where I wish whatever form she is in now that she'd be well, happy, and peace. Very good. That's a good thing to do. Yeah. All right. So Anthony, in Upanisa Sutta, faith leads to joy, which leads to piti, tranquility, sukha, and samadhi. So jhana, essentially, what do you think about the sequence of faith leading to samadhi jhana? Saddha is very important on the path. Even a lot of lay teachers and people, they have to, like, if they teach from the sutras, they kind of have to, they can't deny it, but they'll say, this doesn't mean like blind faith. This is like confidence. No, but it's actually faith too. Yeah, it could be confidence, but it's faith, right? We know that there are people who are faith followers, right? They're not deeply meditative people. They haven't seen, things with their own wisdom yet, but they have such strong faith in the triple gem that can take them pretty far, right? They can even, you know, Bante Siddhaso and Ayasoma told me that they've noticed, and I've confirmed this. I've seen this since then too. That, you know, for like non-Buddhist people, like for Westerners, they get into meditation. They're kind of all fidgety, and it's very hard for them to get into it, and their mind doesn't quiet down, and such and such and such. But when you get somebody like a Thai person, a Sri Lankan person, whoever, who's been their whole life a Buddhist person, they've been practicing lots of dana, lots of sila. They have much confidence and faith in the triple gem. And they sit down and they can sit for like an hour, so kind of like peace, quiet. And I'm like, really? And then I've seen it. It's like, yeah, they just started meditating. Oh, they just started meditating and they can sit longer than me? Well, that's their causes and conditions, right? So it's important that we don't let, those of us who are converts who are coming from other religions or whatever, it's important that we don't let our trauma or our biases about faith color the Buddhist teachings or the process. Faith in Buddhism is very important. for me, I'm a Dhamma follower. I'm a hardhead. I have to experience it for myself. So my faith and confidence in the Buddha came from lots of years of practice and reading suttas and seeing the truth in them and getting to the point where I don't know about these other things, but I have faith in the Buddha, right? I don't have experiential confidence in these things, right? I haven't seen them for myself, but the Buddha's been right all along up to this point. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I have faith in the Buddha, right? So, but Saddha is very important. When you have that faith, what that kind of cuts out a lot is doubt. When you don't have many doubts, right? That's one hindrance right off the bat. Done. You have just a complete faith and confidence in the teachings. And so your mind is not always just questioning, am I doing this right? Am I doing that right? All this kind of intellectualizing that a person does. So you have lots of good faith. Yeah. So faith is very important in the Buddhist path. Saddha. Even for us Buddhist converts who don't like the word. All right. Dharma learner and I have had this conversation before. He's not a big fan of how I end things with "if we're alive" the next time. We'll see. We'll see you for the next event. And I get it, but I think it's important. I really do. Nobody talks like this, and I really feel like I need to model it. I really do. And so I don't think I'm going to ever stop. I think it'll probably get worse. Oh, Dharma learners, it's Bante. I've been working through your closing words on MME, and I don't even just do it on MME. I even do it on Insight Timer. I do it here. It's something I do. So the closing words that Dharma learner is talking about is, if we're alive, we'll see you next week if we're all alive. See you tomorrow if we're all alive. Or maybe I'd say if I'm alive, maybe that is less traumatic because I'm not including you, but I think it's an important reminder. I'm still finding myself stressed when I hear the words, if we are here tomorrow. I guess it's a trigger for some time. Anyway, sometimes the criticism Buddhism can be depressing seems true. Can the triggering of emotions be considered karma? If so, how does one overcome karma? Thank you. I think I've given you the advice before of you start reflecting on these truths. Start doing the 5 subjects of contemplation every day. I'm subject to old age. I'm subject to illness. I'm subject to death. I really can just be gone by the end of the day, right? And mindfulness of death 1 and mindfulness of death 2, the Buddha tells monks to reflect as night approaches. There are many ways I can die tonight. And he gives a whole lot, food poisoning and scorpions, everything from food poisoning to scorpions and, all kinds of ways you could die. And then you wake up in the morning. Oh, there's many ways I can die today. And again, as I always say in the beginning, that's a hard thing to reflect on. But when you kind of break through that initial fear and disgust and anxiety about it, it becomes very powerful. No, I mean, if there's like extra trauma and things like that, that makes it harder, no doubt. But I still think it's beneficial. Maybe it needs to be done in a different way, a slower way, a more skillful way. but I think it can be beneficial. Karuna has Pali homework due 6 a.m. tomorrow. Very good. Very good. All right. So it is 8 o'clock. Let's see if there's any questions or anything left in the chat. And if the chat is done, then I think we could do our meditation. After our meditation, we'll read some Dhammapada verses and close out for the night. Give it one more minute to see if the chat catches up. Oh, hello, Thinnery. All right. We do have a question here. What's a practice that can help with decreasing aversion in the mind while meditating? Letting go. Letting go. Just being the observer of what's happening in the mind. Letting go of trying to control it or trying to think it should be a certain way. Just let it be. Let it go. Just observe. You're following your breath and your mind gets lost and you're trying to come back to the breath and you can't. Just observe. Watch it. Know it. Understand it. Don't fight against it. If you put like aversion and it's like the anger eating demon. If you put aversion and attack, like it shouldn't be this way or whatever, that will just make it stronger. So when you're meditating, you get distracted away. It's normal. It's okay. Let's just come back. Whatever happens, observe it, understand it, try not to judge it. Come back to the breath. Because in a way, whatever that is, thought, sound, fantasy, whatever that is, doesn't really matter. Because the goal is you're supposed to be on the breath. So whatever's distracting you away, like the content of that is not important. You just see it as the mind doing what the mind does. Then you try letting it go, coming back to the breath. The mind is a wild, wild country. It's all kinds of things can arise. All kinds of things can, appear in the mind. Stories and fantasies and fears and lusts. And it's just chock full of all kinds of craziness. When you're trying to practice, you're just trying to gently come back to the breath when you're trying to sit and follow the breath. You're doing anapanasati. Sitting, following the breath. And when there's a major distraction, you can investigate that, observe that, understand that. And then when that goes, you return to the breath. If it's aversion related to maybe something your mind feels like you should do, well, tell your mind, I understand it, I hear you. We'll do it after meditation. That's usually a good way of letting it go. Because the mind is like, okay, they'll deal with it later. We can chill for now. Now you should deal with it later, because if you don't deal with it, it'll just come back up again. And the mind won't trust you as much. It's like, hey, you said we were going to deal with this, but we never did. So it looks like you're not doing anything to me. You're just sitting there. So now we're going to think about it. All right. Now let's practice doing that. Let's do our meditation. Set your body up in whatever comfortable and stable position works for you, whether in a chair, cushion, couch. Whatever way you're sitting, it's important. Posture is very important to pay attention to understand. We'll start by doing a mindful scan of the body, starting from the feet, going up to the head. Begin by placing your focus and attention on the feet. By that, I mean to focus in on and pay attention to whatever sensation is arising in that part of the body, such as the feeling of the feet pressing against the floor, the cushion, the opposite leg, etc. Move up through the ankles into the calves. Through the knees and into the thighs. What's the feeling of the thighs pressing against the chair, cushion, couch? up through to the hips and pelvis. Paying close attention to the position of the pelvis during this practice. See how it impacts both the lower and the upper body. Even as we do in a bit move up to the upper body, many of the problems in your posture in the upper body are rooted in the position of the pelvis. You're ready, move up through the abdomen and the chest, up the spine, checking that the spine is not leaning or slouching here or there, nor that you're trying to make the spine very straight. Either way will end up causing back pain over time as you sit. See if you can just let the spine rest in its natural position, not extended or slouching. Check the position of the pelvis for that as well. And move up to the shoulders, making sure they're hanging loosely, not scrunched up and tight. Down through to the elbows and hands, observing how the position of the elbows and hands also impacts your posture. And then finally up to the head, checking that the head is also not leaning and slouching, chin parallel to the floor. When the lower, middle, and upper parts of the body and the head, when they're all aligned, they'll just be resting comfortably on top of each other. Not leaning or slouching, not trying hard to force yourself in any position. When you're done setting up your body in a comfortable and stable position, let the body go and take 3 deep breaths. Then let the breath go. From here on in, try not to manipulate or control the breath in any way. This body has been breathing from the moment you were born, will continue to do so until the second you die. Doesn't need you to do its job. Your job is to simply observe, investigate, and abide with the breath. The body breathes in and the body breathes out. Now pay attention as I give instructions for the metta practice. Practice of metta is done using both words and visuals. The words and visuals are not the point of the practice, they're just a means to an end. The goal of practicing metta is to develop a mind free of ill will, hatred, aversion, resentment, enmity, and warm hearted feelings of friendliness towards all beings without exception. During this practice, I'll be giving you both words and visuals, and you can choose to use them as you like. We'll be practicing exalted release of metta, which is a method of starting from a small area pervaded with our goodwill, making that area ever larger. We'll start with the person we may have the most agitation towards, dislike, maybe even hatred of. That person is ourselves. We cannot hope to have goodwill for all beings if we don't have it for ourselves as well. If you wish, you can visualize a sphere circle around you, no bigger than your body. And as we say the words and do the visuals, we can fill that sphere up with our goodwill, our friendliness, like air filling up a balloon. Repeat the words. May I find happiness. May I find peace. May I live in friendship with all beings. May I find release from suffering. When you say these words, they're not meant to be just the mantra that you repeat over and over again, wishing for them to be true. You say these words with the honest and sincere aspiration that this person does find happiness, find peace, knows what is good and practices what is good, giving that goodwill and friendliness, saying these good, kind words to yourself like you would a close family member or best friend. Repeat the words again. May I find happiness. May I find peace. May I live in friendship with all beings. May I find release from suffering. May I find happiness. May I find peace. May I live in friendship with all beings. May I find release from suffering. We'll start to spread our sphere out larger, encompassing the entirety of whatever building you're in, all the beings in it, human, animal, insects, seen and unseen beings, whatever beings there may be, omitting none. Pervade and perfuse that sphere surrounding that building with your goodwill and friendliness. May all of us in this building find happiness. May all of us find peace. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. Spread your sphere to encompass the entirety of whatever town or village or city that you live in, pervading how many thousands, hundred thousands, or millions of beings, not just humans, animals and insects and unseen beings, whatever beings there may be. May all of us in this town find happiness. May all of us find peace. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. Spread your sphere out to encompass whatever state, region, or province you live in. Millions and millions, maybe even billions of beings, human, animal, insect, seen and unseen, without exemption. May all of us in this region find happiness. May all of us find peace. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. Spread your sphere to encompass whatever country you're living in. All beings within that country pervaded by your goodwill and friendliness. May all of us in this country find happiness. May all of us find peace. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. Spread your sphere ever larger, encompassing the entirety of this planet Earth. Pale blue dot in a sea of darkness, completely encapsulated by your goodwill and friendliness, pervading all beings, trillions of beings, in the air, land, under the sea. May all of us on this planet find happiness. May all of us find peace. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. We're not done yet, friends. Continue to spread your sphere out into the cosmos, growing ever larger, encompassing the entirety of our home galaxy, the Milky Way, hundreds of billions of stars and planets. Whatever beings there may be, may all of us in the Milky Way find happiness. May all of us find peace. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. Continue to spread your sphere out to encompass the entirety of the known universe and beyond. Wherever beings in the samsaric state may be, fellow siblings in suffering, this whole universe, other universes, dimensions, we don't know. Who knows where other beings may be? We don't hold back our metta, spreading our sphere out into infinity, encompassing all beings everywhere. May all of us everywhere find happiness. May all of us find peace. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. Slowly start to come back from the universe to the galaxy, the earth, country, all the way back to your body, opening your eyes, becoming aware of the room around you, live stream, reflecting on the state of your mind before the meditation and now, and also contemplating any experiences you may have had during the meditation. And while you do that, we'll start reading some Dhammapada verses. We are all the way to the very end of the Dhammapada once more. Don't worry, next week we'll start it all over again. Maybe even this week. Let's see. The holy man, the Brahmin. Exert yourself, O holy man. Cut off the stream of craving and discard sense desires. Knowing the destruction of all the conditioned things, become, O holy man, the knower of the uncreated Nibbana. When a holy man has reached the summit of two paths, meditative concentration and insight, samatha and vipassana, he knows the truth, and all his fetters fall away. He for whom there is neither this shore nor the other shore, nor yet both. He who is free of cares and is unfettered, him do I call a holy man. He who is meditative, stainless, and settled, whose work is done, and who is free from the cankers, having reached the highest goal, him do I call a holy man. The sun shines by day, the moon shines by night, the warrior shines in armor, the holy man shines in meditation. But the Buddha shines resplendent all day and all night. Because he has discarded evil, he is called a holy man. Because he is serene and in conduct, he is called a recluse. And because he has renounced his impurities, he is called a renunciate. One should not strike a holy man, nor should a holy man, when struck, give way to anger. Shame on him who strikes a holy man. More shame on him who gives way to anger. Nothing is better for a holy man than when he holds his mind back from what is endearing, to the extent and the intent of to harm wears away. To that extent does suffering subside. So to the extent that intent to harm wears away, to that extent does suffering subside. He who does no evil in deed, word, or thought, who is restrained in these three ways, him do I call a holy man. Just as a Brahmin priest reveres his sacrificial fire, even so should one devoutly revere the person for whom one has learned the Dhamma taught by the Buddha. Not by matted hair, nor by lineage, nor by birth does one become a holy man, but he in whom truth and righteousness exist. He is pure, he is a holy man. What is the use of your matted hair, O witless man? What of your garment of antelope's hide? Within you is the tangle of passion. Only outwardly do you cleanse yourself. The person who wears a robe made of rags, who is lean, with veins showing all over the body, and who meditates alone in the forest, him do I call a holy man. I do not call him a holy man because of his lineage or highborn mother. If he is full of impending attachments or impeding attachments, he is just a supercilious man. But who is free from impediments and clinging, him do I call a holy man. He who, having cut off all feathers, trembles no more, who has overcome all attachments and is emancipated, him do I call a holy man. He who, having cut off the thong of hatred, the band of craving, and the rope of false views, together with the opportunities, latent evil tendencies, he who has removed the crossbar of ignorance and is enlightened, him do I call a holy man. He who is without resentment, endures abuse, beating and punishment, whose power, real might, is patience, him do I call a holy man. He who is free from anger is devout, virtuous, without craving, self subdued, and bears his final body. Him do I call a holy man. Like water on a lotus leaf, or a mustard seed on the point of a needle, he who does not cling to sensual pleasures, him do I call a holy man. He who in this very life realizes for himself the end of suffering, who has laid aside the burden and become emancipated, him do I call a holy man. He who has profound knowledge, who is wise, skilled in discerning the right or wrong path, and has reached the highest goal, him do I call a holy man. He who holds aloof from householders and ascetics alike, and wanders about with no fixed abode, but few wants, him do I call a holy man. He who has renounced violence towards all living beings, weak or strong, who neither kills nor causes to others to kill, him do I call a holy man. He who is friendly amidst the hostile, peaceful amidst the violence, and unattached amidst the attached, him do I call a holy man. He whose lust and hatred, pride and hypocrisy have fallen off like a mustard seed from the point of a needle, him do I call a holy man. He who utters gentle, instructive, and truthful words, who imprecates none, him do I call a holy man. He who in this world takes nothing that is not given to him, be it long or short, small or big, good or bad, him do I call a holy man. He who wants nothing of either this world or the next, who is desire free and emancipated, him do I call a holy man. He who has no attachment, who through perfect knowledge is free from doubts and has plunged into the deathless, him do I call a holy man. He who is in this world has transcended the ties of both merit and demerit, who is sorrowless, stainless, and pure, him do I call a holy man. He who, like the moon, is spotless and pure, serene and clear, who has destroyed the delight in existence, him do I call a holy man. He who, having traversed this miry, perilous, and delusive round of existence, has crossed over and reached the other shore, who is meditative, calm, free from doubt, and clinging to nothing, has attained to Nibbana. Him do I call a holy man. He who, having abandoned sensual pleasures, has renounced the household life and becomes a homeless one, has destroyed both sensual desire and continued existence, him do I call a holy man. He who, having abandoned craving, has renounced the household life and become a homeless one, has destroyed both craving and continued existence, him do I call a holy man. He who, casting off human bonds and transcending heavenly ties, is wholly delivered of all bondages, him do I call a holy man. He who, having cast off likes and dislikes, has become tranquil, is rid of the substrata of existence, and like a hero has conquered all the worlds, him do I call a holy man. He who in every way knows the death and rebirth of all beings, and is totally detached, blessed, and enlightened, him do I call a holy man. He whose tracks no gods, no angels, no humans trace, the Arahant who has destroyed all cankers, him do I call a holy man. He who clings to nothing of past, present, and future, who has no attachment and holds onto nothing, him do I call a holy man. He, the noble, the excellent, the heroic, the great sage, the conqueror, the passionless, the pure, the enlightened one, him do I call a holy man. He who knows his former births, who sees heaven and hell, who has reached the end of births and attained to the perfection of insight, the sage who has reached this summit of spiritual excellence, him do I call a holy. All right, friends. So we have come to the end. We'll do our final business, sharing of merit, then call it a night. Bring out the banners. So, friends, if this is your first time joining us, welcome. If you found this session beneficial, you'd like to find out more about the various things that I do in my organization, Maggasekha, which means Students of the Path, you can go to the website that is down below, maggasekha.org, maggasekha.org. On this website, you can find a variety of things. You can be notified of everything that I do in terms of live streams, retreats. This weekend coming up, we have Metta retreat, starting Friday, ending Sunday. So you can join us in a retreat on Zoom if you like. Retreats, live streams, videos, articles. I'm currently in the middle of writing a 4-part article series, The Maggasekha Way, Buddha's Attitudes Towards the Practice. So there's a variety of things always going on. If you go to the website, you can see the announcements for these things. You can, at the top right, there's a place to put your email. And if you put your email in there, anytime I post something new, you'll be notified by email. Same thing on YouTube. If you'd like, you can click subscribe, click the bell, do all that stuff so that you are fully notified anytime something new comes up. So we also have our Maggasekha community on the Discord program. This is a community of practitioners, the Maggasekha community, that studies and practices according to the early texts, the suttas. So if that sounds something like something you're interested in, you can join our community on Discord. You can ask for an invite by sending an email to the email on the screen, maggasekha@gmail.com. Ask for an invite and we'll get you an invite. So in terms of the various activities, Monday nights, of course, all of these, as a wandering monk, sometimes I'm in places where I can't do these. Sometimes I'm traveling. There's not always that I get to do these, but at least for the next couple months, we should be pretty stable. And so Monday nights, 7 p.m. Eastern, Dhammapalooza. Saturday afternoons, 3 to 4:30 p.m. Eastern on Insight Timer program. I do my Insight Timer session, hour and a half session of meditation, Dhamma talk, and Q&A. So you're welcome to join on that. You can find me as a teacher on Insight Timer. I'm trying to get back into doing Ask a Bhante series on Wednesdays. One of these days, I'll get back into the habit. So hopefully we'll get an Ask a Bhante out soon. Sundays on the Discord at 7 o'clock, we have our community get together where we read suttas together. We've been doing this for 7 years, over 7 years. We've read through getting close to half of the Nikayas. Not quite there, but close. Close to half the Nikayas by this point. Over 7 years of Sunday readings. And we also have Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. morning monastery experience. This is a half-hour session that I do with the community Monday through Friday, 8 a.m., where it's simulating like if you stayed at a monastery, if you stayed at Bhavana Society or most monasteries. There's a little morning puja, morning chanting, morning Dhamma learning session. And that's what we do every morning, 8 a.m. We do some precepts, some chanting, some chanting and reading through various suttas. And then we end with a thought of the day, which is a little Dhamma thought. So this is a very good way to start your day, especially if you're on the East Coast. It's right before going to work. So it's a good way. It's a good way to start your day with Dhamma. All right, friends. I think we are good. We can share merits and then call it a night. Let me bring up the share merit. Dukkha patta chane dukkha, bhaya patta chane bhaya, soka patta chane soka, hantu sabbe pipaniyo, etavata cha mehi sampatang punya sampatang, punyang tang anumoditva, sabbe deva anumoditto, sabbe sampatti siddhya, akasatta jabumata deva naga mahiddika, punyang tang anumoditva. Tarang rakantu sasanang. May the suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, but may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit of ours for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas, nagas, and yakas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. All right, friends, we have come to the end of another Dhammapalooza. Sukhi Hotu, which means may you be well and at ease. Practice well and be well. May you have a spiritually successful and peaceful practice until we meet again. And we're all alive next Monday. We'll be doing this again. Or hopefully I'll see you maybe during Morning Monastery Experience, maybe in the Discord community, maybe next week. We'll see. Have a good week, friends.